Now, here's the host of Good as Gold, Nick Grovich.
Hi, Carl Ladas here filling in for Nick Grovich. He's out of the office this week. Just wanted to give you a quick recap on the markets. We've been trading at, 7-year lows pretty much across the board last week and a half or so. And as always, we think it's a great time to get into the markets. Jen wants me to get a couple housekeeping items out of the way right away. And I failed last show to mention our weekly guess the price, spot price of gold close on our website. And the winner of last week, guessed closest to the price of spot close last Wednesday was Sally W. of Tennessee. Congratulations, Sally. We'll be getting a Silver Eagle out to you in the mail here shortly if it already hasn't been mailed. And this week, got something kind of special. I've been waiting to do this. If you've heard me on the radio before, I've been waiting for somebody to exactly guess the spot price so we can give them a 10th ounce or a $5 gold eagle. And it was somebody right out here in Mesa by the name of Clem. Clem in Mesa won a $5 gold eagle. Congratulations. We'll get one of those out in the mail to you today. And again, if anybody has any questions about today's show or any previous show or just any questions about coins or the bullion markets in general, feel free to call our office at 800-221-7694. I'm excited today. I've got a couple of guests from World Numismatics. I've got Cory Frampton and Kent Ponterio. Cory's been on the show before several times and always brings a lot to the table, and we really enjoy that. And I've mentioned Kent in the past on previous radio shows, and finally we got him in the office. He's extremely busy. Kent, you want to say hi to our listening audience and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name's Kent Ponterio, and to give you a little bit of background on myself, I'm one of the owners of World Numismatics. Previous to starting that business, I worked in the auction industry most of my professional career in coins. I was the senior numismatist of foreign and ancient coins at Stack's Bowers for 6 years. And previous to that, I worked at Ponterio Associates for 16 years and doing the same thing, cataloging foreign and ancient coins, buying and selling foreign and ancient coins, as well as world paper money. To give you a little bit further background, I kind of grew up in the industry. My father was a coin dealer. My grandfather was a coin dealer. My father still is a coin dealer. My brother is a coin dealer. And it's kind of been the family tradition in our family.
Wonderful. And you guys also like to hunt, so I'm right there with
there
you.
There you
go. You just got back from Europe, didn't you? You spent, a month over there or so?
I've done 2 trips over there this year. I was just over there last month. I was there for just short of a month. And I was there right at the end of February through most of March, both on buying trips. The euro's been incredibly cheap this year. So the first time I was over there, the euro dipped as low as $1.06, and right now, if you're following the currency, it's been fluctuating around $1.05, $1.06. So for me, for going over there and buying coins and importing them into the U.S., they're over there still thinking in euros, whereas 2 years ago it was $1.35, $1.36.
Right.
I can go over there and I'm buying things where they're still thinking the same amount, and you basically get a 20 to 30% discount on it.
Fantastic. Over lunch we were talking about U.S. coins over there still being bought by a lot of the boys from the United States going over to Europe and buying the older pre-33 U.S. gold.
There's a lot of U.S. coins over there. I mean, one thing that people don't talk about too much is when they recalled the gold in this country, a lot of people weren't having it, and they shipped their gold out of the country to places like France, to the UK, to Switzerland, and some of these foreign banks still have deposits of this stuff, and it's still coming back on the market.
Yeah. That's a perfect example of why we don't necessarily, as a company, recommend common date pre-33 U.S. gold. There's just so much of it available already, and yet there's still a large supply of it in Europe that we know is out there, and they're still bringing it back into the United States.
There's an awful lot of that in the world, and I would tell you that there's some government banks. I know that a couple of the Scandinavian banks, their national gold holdings, a lot of it's actually still in coin form. So what happens is it's on their books as just bullion, but it's actually coin form, like US 20s. Some of it could be, Danish 10 or 20 marks, things like that. But inevitably what happens with these larger institutions is they realize that there's a value on these coins above the bullion value, and instead of counting it on their books just as the gold, they'll sell it off and replace it with bullion, and obviously capitalize on the premiums of this and replace it with more gold. So these things do have a tendency to come out in pretty large groups like that.
Right. Cory, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm great. I'm just hanging in here listening.
What's going on? What have you seen in your markets over there at World Numismatics? Anything changing for you guys? Anything exciting for the holidays? Any shows coming up? Anything like that?
We've been spending a lot of time broadening our inventory lately. It seems like with Kent being in Europe and doing a lot of buying and everything else we've got going on, we've spent a lot of time lately doing that. But upcoming here shortly is two of the major shows. New York International, which is predominantly world and ancient coins. Kent and our other partner Max will be there at the New York show. I'm going to go to the Florida show. I think I drew the better straw on this one. It'll be nice and warm. And
weather-wise, you certainly did.
Yeah, fresh seafood. It'll be great. But that's as you may know is probably is Florida now bigger than Baltimore? Do you guys know?
I would say yes.
Yeah, probably still, and there's a large influence of Latin American buyers and sellers in that market, obviously, as close as it is to that area. So we're looking forward to that. The markets in general in world coins, it continues to be about the same as it has the past few years. Things that are really nice, rarities are doing really well. The middle of the road, low premium stuff is complacent, and it's just typical of the way the markets have been over the last 10 years.
Right. I was talking to Scott, who works with you guys, and he was mentioning that I think it was, I don't know if it was 50 pesos or the newer ones, what you guys call newer. How there's some that are going in pretty high grades, are coming up within 66, 67, and there's a lot of guys out there sitting with 65s that are looking to upgrade, but he wasn't quite sure what you guys were going to do with the 65s because they're kind of so common that, does that make sense, or did I screw that up?
No, that's probably true, but for instance, in the newer gold series, 20th century gold series, if you talk about the 20 pesos and 50 pesos, the collectors tend to, that are collecting them by date, tend to start at 65. And MS65 sets are not that easy in the earlier 1920s. There are some dates in there that are tough, but yes, they do tend to try and move up from there, and it's a competitive area that there's quite a few people trying to accumulate the best collections in.
Oh, neat. It's always interesting. Looks like we're going to be coming up on a break here shortly. I got a few seconds here to kill. Again, feel free to contact American Federal if you have any questions at 800-221-7694, or you can call World Numismatics if you're interested in world coins at Cory.
480-921-2562.
And we're also taking questions today. Please feel free to call in and ask any questions as long as it pertains to who cares what it pertains to? Just call in. We would love to hear from you. The live radio show number here is 602-324-1510. Again, this is just kind of an open forum. We're going to be discussing the relative topics of the coin industry, and feel free to call in. Thank you.
Once again, here's Nick Grovich.
Hi, Carl Ladas. Carl Ladas filling in for Nick Grovich. He's out of town. I'm here with Kent Ponterio and Cory Frampton from World Numismatics. Over the break, we were talking about collectors, and Kent, you started talking about they're two separate things.
About collecting and investing?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, they're two entirely different things. I mean, investing is using money to buy something as an investment and to try with the potential of making money on it. And collecting is more something you do as a hobby. You do it because you like it. And you were asking me what kind of people should collect, and well, I think anybody. I mean, it doesn't have to. There's no real type of person that this is. If you go to a coin show, you see people from all different kinds of walks of life that are collectors. And I would say that, yeah, exactly. Collect what you like. And my best advice, if you're a collector, when you find a series or something that you like, buy the best quality that you can afford to buy. Quality is always the thing that, of course, there's value associated with this, but quality is always the thing that appreciates more than quantity.
Right. I remember we were talking about quality, collectors, and a lot of the collectors that I deal with, and you mentioned something real similar to it, a lot of the guys I deal with that are collectors actually know more about their coins than we do as dealers.
I really think the biggest difference between a collector and investor is that an investor writes a check in the hopes of profiting longer term, whereas a collector's interested in the area that they're collecting, whether that's U.S. or it's Mexican, or it could be paper money, it could be lunchboxes.
Right.
Like, people collect all kinds of things, and collectors tend to be very knowledgeable, or at least work toward being very knowledgeable in the subject that they're collecting. Big difference. A collector is better able to defend themselves in a marketplace where there's people selling things over the telephone. They know a big picture, at least, when they're making a mistake. Investors have to rely on somebody. Investors typically have to find somebody that they can deal with on a long-term basis and feel comfortable that they're getting reasonable value for their money.
I think even further than that, if you're collecting a series and you really like it, you really study it, and for the most part, the collector can even have an advantage over the dealer, because once you've spent so much time with a certain series or a certain area of collecting, you start to know nuances, rare varieties, things like that, and you might even be able to pick up something that's a rare variant for a common price because you have specialized knowledge that you've learned through studying it.
I think that's pretty common, actually. Dealers tend to have a very broad knowledge and not real detailed knowledge because they have to deal with a wide variety of topics day to day. A collector, I've seen a lot of collectors buy things from dealers where they're more knowledgeable than the dealer and pick up good values because they have that specialized knowledge.
Yeah, that's the difference between basically commercial knowledge and specialized knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah, we also speak, just kind of rolling into what I wanted to talk about next was the grading. We had a great conversation at lunch about the grading and what happens to the collectors ending up. You know what we talked about. You want to elaborate where the collectors end up with the higher quality coins?
Yeah, we started talking about certified coins, and I kind of have this pitch that I talk to people when they're like, oh, this coin's overgraded or this or that. And there's a human aspect to certifying coins, and I would tell you that if you put 100 coins in front of any one person and asked them to grade them, even the best grader in the world would be spot on most of them. A few of them he would probably overgrade, and a few of them he would undergrade. And, you look at these in quantity, and every once in a while you're going to miss something like a cleaning or a scratch or whatever. And on a long enough timeline, if a coin's undergraded, somebody would crack it out of that holder, resubmit it, and get it in a proper holder. So that being said, if a coin is overgraded and it's graded MS65 when it's really a 64, no one's ever going to take it out of that holder because why would you do that?
Right.
So sometimes what you see on the market is these coins that just haven't found homes, that, an educated collector who really knows what he's looking at wouldn't buy it. Mm-hmm. And whereas he would buy something that's properly graded or undergraded. So the kind of overgraded stuff stays on the market longer.
Stays on the market, ends up in non-knowledgeable buyers' hands. Probably the big telemarketer guys are pushing that type of stuff because they know their clientele that isn't knowledgeable enough. Right, because
you could, the theory behind certified coins was that you could buy these things sight unseen based on the grade. It eliminated a lot of the problems that happened early on with coins where, dealers with not so good morals would sell clean coins, whizzed coins, things like that. All of a sudden, here's something regulating this, that you've got, a fairly good chance you're buying a really nice coin based on how it's certified. And but if it's overgraded and it's in the holder, you could go off a previous auction record or what it catalogs for on the gray sheet or a reference book. Even though it says it's a 65, it may not be a 65.
Right.
And if you're pitching it to someone sight unseen, they don't know what they're buying.
Right. Right.
So,
Well, I think that's where John Albanese and Cat kind of came into it for the U.S. coin market, at least. He's made it definitely, for those of you that are aware of what CAC is, he's made it easier for a non-knowledgeable buyer to buy a coin that's actually certified at the grade. It's not overgraded. Probably made it a lot easier for people to actually get good quality coins. The problem is that CAC sticker carries a hefty premium sometimes.
Oh, it
and
sure
sometimes
does.
it's not the greatest investment, depending on what the dealer is charging for it. So.
no, but there's the collectors are willing to pay for it. I mean, they know that what they're getting when they get a coin that's not only been certified, but somebody who was one of the founders of that company looked at it and he agrees with the grade. And not only does he agree with the grade, I mean, he backs it up financially.
Yeah.
I mean, he has buys out on these things that, if it comes up for sale, I will buy it at this level.
Right.
It's almost like an insurance policy.
It is. It's nice. I think we've actually sold him a couple coins. It works out great. We just need him to get interested in the foreign coin market, help you boys out a little bit.
There you go.
Good deal. So.
That'd be interesting. They'd have to find people that were willing to sit there and do that grading, that are competent in a broad number of areas in world and ancient. And
but think about how many coins there are for the United States, and then multiply that times however many countries there are in the world.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I mean, you would have to have a staff of expertise that was limitless.
We might have just came up with a business model for
the
him,
problem
if you
with
could
that,
find the people knowledgeable enough.
the problem with that is that the people who are knowledgeable enough, that have enough knowledge to look at a variety of different countries of the world and go into ancients and things, there's so few of them.
Right.
It's incredible how few have that level of knowledge, and most of them don't want to sit in the dark grading coins.
Yeah, most of them don't want a desk job and are content doing what they're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Auctions. What do we think about auctions these days, boys? You guys having good luck there? What are you seeing?
I grew up in the auction industry, and I worked in that field for 22 years. And in a really good economy, in a really good market, I would tell you that auctions are kind of the end-all be-all, that like if the market's really strong and everybody's participating, that things bring great prices at auction. When the economy is a little shaky or the market's a little shaky, it gets patchy. And what we've seen recently, at least I've seen this in the world coins, is that it's inconsistent right now. You can have a coin that brings $3,000 one month, and 2 months later a similar coin in the same grade might bring $4,000, and then 2 months later another coin sells and it brings $2,500. It's just inconsistent. And what that shows me is the market might be a little bit thin. There's still buyers, there's still people participating, but auctions may not be the best venue. And I could tell you that we as a company do consign material to auctions, and some of it does very well, some of it goes unsold. We had one coin that we consigned to an auction that went unsold at 40% less than our retail price. When we got it back, we put it back on our website at our full retail price, and it sold within 2 days. So what I would tell you an auction price is, it's not indicative of what a coin's worth in the market. It's indicative of what two people that participated in that auction were willing to pay on that given day.
Right.
So it's not that's the price because it brought that in auction.
Right. We see the same exact thing in our world with the U.S. stuff. They're starting the music on us. Going to another break. Again, if you're interested in trying to win a silver eagle, or if you hit it spot on, a gold 10th ounce gold eagle, please visit our website at AmericanFederal.com. Any questions, 800-221-7694. And Cory, you can always call these guys.
480-921-2562, worldnumismatics.com.
We'll be right back.
Once again, here's Nick Grovich.
Hi, Carl here with Kent and Cory. Cory, we were talking on break about what types of items you should or maybe should not consign at an auction.
Kent has a lot of experience with this on the generic end. My one comment would be that there are segments of the collecting marketplace, and I'll use an example, Mexican Republic gold. There are date collectors of Mexican Republic gold, as there are with lots of same thing in the U.S. areas. The only difference is that the market is thin. So where you might have, let's say, 10 guys in the U.S. that collect Republic gold by date, and if you put a coin in an auction that's rare, there needs to be at least 2 people bidding on that coin, or you can be in serious trouble. It's not uncommon for us to bid for a customer where everybody else in the room stops at, say, $5,000 on a particular coin, and there'll be 2 of us representing a customer, and we may end up at $11,000 or $12,000. Both of these people need the coins. Well, if one of us had not been there, it would have sold for $5,000. And that's an area where we think you're a lot better off in rarities, sometimes to go to your dealer and do a private treaty sale on the coins rather than go to the auctions. Ken would have some other thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of things that do better off in private treaty than do an auction, and sometimes it's vice versa. For me, auction is a place for very special things that you can't just go out and buy. If a coin shows up in an auction, that's something I can just go on a website or go into someone's coin shop and buy it. Why would 2 people pay a high price for that at auction? It just doesn't make sense.
Perfect example would be an MS-65 $20 St. Gaudens.
Well, that's a great example, because if you put that in auction, you would definitely net less money than if you went and sold it to a reputable coin dealer, because when you take into account the auction fees and the commissions, then you net less than the premium that you would have gotten out of a coin shop.
Might be less than the gold content in the coin.
In some cases, it will. Like
Yeah.
I've seen people, like estates and things, consign things like maple leafs or Krugerrands, where the estate goes through the auction, and it's like, wow, you're paying a 19.5% buyer's fee on top of that, so you're basically getting 19.5% back of gold for this.
We have a number of times in
which is crazy.
Yeah, we've in a number of auctions recently where we've figured our bids, and when we figure the bids, we're at 115 or 17% of the is our gross. So if we're buying gold and gold's $1,000, our gross bid might be $1,000 or $1,050 on something that's very bullion related. Well, that means that the seller, by the time they get their check, got 85% or 82% of the gold content of the item. It doesn't make any sense.
So as a dealer, I consign 2 auction houses, and things that are like normal inventory, things that we stock regularly, that we have multiple, that's normally not the kind of thing that I put into an auction. The kind of thing that I'll put into an auction is something where I might not be sure what that coin is worth in that particular grade. Like, recently, we got a coin certified where it was the finest certified of the type. And, we knew that an MS-63 was worth X, and this was much higher graded than that. So my fear was, okay, do I actually put a price on this and maybe I sell it too cheap? Let's put it in the auction and find out what people are willing to pay for something like that. That's for special items.
That is really appropriate auction material. If you can look at something and ask the question, gosh, how much is this worth? It belongs in an auction.
Yeah.
What about when you have a classically collected coin, known rarity, and when is the right time to put that one up at auction? Do you take into account there's 5 other ones at the same auction at the same time?
That's interesting, because a couple of years ago, I know of an auction company, a larger auction company, where they had it was either 6 or 8 high relief 20s in it, which is a rare U.S. coin. And they brought less than market because it was basically a saturation point. There were too many of them in one auction. While at the same point, another smaller online auction company had 2 of them consigned to him, and he sold them 2 weeks later, and he spaced his out about a week or 2 apart. And this little online auction actually got more money than the big, well-known auction company for the coins in the same grade. because putting too much of the same thing in auction, it saturates it.
Yeah.
Because you have so many buyers, and the first guy goes, well, if I don't get this one, I'll bid on this one, then I'll bid on this one. And usually what happens is everybody watches the price of the first one, and it sets the price.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Seems like there's a miscommunication there between the auction firm and the dealer, and I mean, you got to have some good advice in there somewhere. It sounds like somebody misses the ball when you see saturation like that happen on a coin like that.
sometimes, yeah. I mean, usually a good auction house gives sound advice if they're a reputable auction house, but I mean, things like that can happen. I mean,
Yeah.
And also, they get consignments from different people, and they can't. It's hard to refuse items like that, and they find themselves just coincidentally getting multiples of the same item at the same time.
yeah, and when you're talking about a 5-figure coin like that, the auction house doesn't want to turn it away.
Right.
They want the commission.
Right. Well, what the heck do we talk about next? We talked about auctions. We talked about grading. Hey, you guys had a client with a trunk full of coins or something in a garage?
When I was working at Stax Bowers, this guy came in, and he was at a local estate sale, and his wife bought this foot trunk, and it was full of vintage clothing, and she'd been pulling the clothing off and selling it on eBay. And when they got to the bottom of the trunk, there's these drawers at the bottom, and when he opened it up, there was a whole collection of Roman coins down there, and the stuff had been sitting in their garage for like 2 years, and they had no idea that it was there.
Wow.
So that, I don't know exactly what they paid for the trunk. I mean, it was probably under a couple $100, but we wound up getting that guy like $35,000 for the coins that were just sitting in his
Yeah.
garage and that he had no idea that he'd bought.
There's a lot of that stuff out there.
It happens a lot.
There's a lot of stories like that.
Yeah, Don and I in the office had a guy in, I think it was Michigan a few years ago, and it was one of those appointments where he just had a few, Morgan dollars and Peace dollars. It wasn't a whole lot of money. Probably wouldn't have even seen the guy except that we were right there and we had time. So it was in the evening. He was willing to see us, and so we popped in, and he brings out this old Converse shoe box. And there's old baseball cards. I'm like, oh, cool, baseball cards. I started going through his baseball cards. There was some coins at the bottom. And we started going through his dollars, and what do we find? We find an extremely rare Morgan dollar. I wasn't sure it was real. Don wasn't sure it was real. We weren't really ready to write a guy a check for $12,000 or $15,000 right there on the spot. We weren't sure about. So we consigned it for him, sent it off to PCGS, got certified. Lo and behold, we ended up realizing about $25,000 for that coin that was in his shoebox. It was his father's shoebox that his old tennis shoes ran with all his little collectibles. So, yeah, I'm sure some of those baseball cards are probably worth a fortune too. You were talking about the lunch boxes. I mean, it seems like anything that's a real collectible that's extremely rare, if it's lunch boxes or paintings or cars for that matter, have done fairly well.
The stories just go on and on. We were at Long Beach a couple of years ago, and a guy walks by the table and points at a piece of Mexican revolutionary currency that wasn't rare, but it was kind of scarce. He says, you buy those? I said, yeah. He says, I've got some I'd like to sell you. And I said, well, how many is some? Well, kind of a lot. I said, well, how many is kind of a lot? And he shows me with his hands, and I'm thinking, that's about 15,000 of them. I said, well, tell me your story. He says, well, I wanted to open a pawn shop down on the border in Nogales, and the roof leaked, and we had to get up inside the crawl space to repair this roof, and we found this trunk, and sometime during the Mexican Revolution they'd stored this thing up in this attic, and it was all crisp uncirculated currency that just got forgotten from that point forward.
It was probably stashed there during the Revolution. Then of course it was demonetized after the Revolution and became worthless. And now it has collectible value.
It wasn't worth going up there and getting.
It's like old Confederate notes. After the Civil War, a lot of the Confederate paper money was virtually, it was worthless. I mean,
right.
people used it as toilet paper or wallpaper or whatever.
Same sort of thing. The stories of people turning things up, especially in Mexico after the Revolution, because during the Revolution, everything that was gold or silver disappeared. If you owned it, you buried it and hid it. Tried to hide the value, and as a result, they had 10,000 issuers of currency, of script that was used during the Revolution as money. You could trade things for a pound of beef. It was all currency driven.
Right.
And so a lot of those things got buried. People died in battles and things, and this still turns up today. Hordes of different kinds of things in walls and all sorts of places.
Yeah. We've got obviously a national audience or a national clientele we deal with, and I didn't realize that. I learned this last year. A customer of ours on the East Coast has an old colonial home, and he was telling me about pulling up the first step of the stoop into the front porch. Hopefully you've got a home old enough that they haven't replaced the stairs, but it was customary to set a colonial coin underneath, for good luck, underneath that first tread on the stairs going up to the porch. So I'm sure there's been a bunch of those that have been found over the years, but kind of interesting.
Actually, it's also kind of traditional that the cornerstones on churches and old buildings that they would basically place like a little time capsule in their coins and other things.
Yeah.
There was a hoard of coins from Colombia that hit the market a couple of years back, maybe 5 years back, 6 years back, that they came out of the cornerstone of a colonial church. And there was a group of unknown date for a Colombian pillar dollar, 1770s.
Wow.
And there was about a dozen of them in just this fabulous grade, which
we'll talk about it
okay.
when we get back. It looks like they're closing down on us. That sounds like pretty cool stuff, Ken. We'll be right back.
Once again, here's Nick Grovich.
Hi, Carl Ladas with Cory Frampton and Kent Ponterio of World Numismatics. Kent, you were talking about pillar dollars.
Yeah, we were discussing the just hoards and things that come out of the woodwork, and we were talking about the hoard of Colombian pillar dollars that showed up down in Colombia, and several of them made their way here, and it was interesting. These were coins that the date was totally unknown. However, like contemporary documents, there were mintage figures for it, so it was known that these were made, but there was none known to exist until they found them in the cornerstone of this church.
Wow. And then what was this church that you're talking about? They've got it. It was a company.
New Jersey.
Yeah, New Jersey. Yeah.
A few years back, I flew out to New Jersey and I stayed with a buddy of mine, and we drove down to this company in New Jersey called Ferrocute Machine Company, which was an old metal manufacturer, machine manufacturer, and they were one of the companies that supplied the U.S. Mint with new presses when they decided to modernize the mint. And they also supplied some countries like China when they first started industrializing China. They supplied like the Szechuan mint and a few of the other mints with presses and things like that. And I went over there to go pick up a consignment from a guy that was writing, a historian that was writing a book on it, and got to see the site, it's this huge old industrial building that's kind of a condemned site now because the grounds are contaminated from all the, they didn't know back in the day they were dumping acids and heavy metals into the dirt. But the cornerstone on that building, he pointed it out to me, and we were looking at it through the fence, and he goes, that's a time capsule. And I go, I was going to ask. And he goes, it's documented that when they built that building and they put the cornerstone in, and it's dated 1903 when they built that specific building. And he goes, yeah, there's coins in there. And I go,
wow.
Well, when this site's condemned enough and they decide to demolish it, let me know. I'd like to come.
A long line of guys with picks and shovels.
Yeah, that's right.
That sounds fun. That's neat. What's going on in Europe? You were just in Europe. I know the ancient coins, they haven't been grading them that long. What's going on in that market with the graded ancients?
Certified ancients. So U.S. coins have been being certified for quite some time. Foreign coins, that really started kind of in the late 90s is really when that took off. And more recently, NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, started certifying ancients a couple years back, and it's really kind of taken off amongst collectors. It's kind of in its infancy right now. The ancient coin market's very reminiscent of what the foreign coin market was like in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, where a lot of new people are coming into it because all of a sudden you have certified product where this company's like, here's a genuine coin, here's the grade, and you're getting a lot of crossover from people that are collecting either foreign coins or U.S. coins that it makes it a lot easier for them to bridge the gap into this field of collectibles.
Maybe we should define ancient coins. I just thought of that. Some of our clientele might not know exactly what an ancient coin is.
That's a pretty broad statement, but I'm talking about like classical Greek and Roman.
Okay, 1,000, 2,000-year-old coins.
2,000 or more.
Oh,
Some
wow.
of the invent of coins, probably 600-700 BC. It's early electrum that came out of Turkey, kind of a mix. Electrum's a mixture of kind of gold and silver. That's like a pale yellow. That's the world's first coins, and
that's amazing.
What's the oldest thing we've got in inventory right now?
Electrum.
Yeah.
We have a couple of pieces of electrum in inventory.
It'll be Christmas time soon, and there was during
before Christ, though.
Oh, we actually sell some of the coins that are like in the Bible and stuff like that. Like,
that's neat.
Yeah, like there's like the shekel of Tyre, the classic story, the 30 pieces of silver that Judas was paid to betray Jesus. They believe that's a Phoenician shekel, and it's actually
That'd be a cool Christmas gift. Actually,
yeah, it's actually it's a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
In lower grades, they aren't that particularly expensive as a gift kind of thing.
They're still hundreds of dollars, but a really nice one is in the low thousand, maybe 1,000, 1,500. A super nice one would be more than that, but average quality, $600-700, something like that. It's one of those things that they don't stay in stock very long.
No, I would assume not.
They're in and out really quick.
I just think that's amazing. Think about that. It's in the Bible.
And it's just
but it's Christmas time.
It's history, just like literally in your hand. But there's coins like that you could buy an ancient coin for as little as a couple bucks. That's a genuine ancient coin.
It's amazing to me as Kent comes back from Europe with these new purchases, how much material there still is out there that's in nice condition, and it was a result of these things have gotten. Kent can talk more about it.
It's kind of everything though. Like I'll go over there. I'm very much a generalist in what I buy in my buying habits. I'll buy Greek, I'll buy Roman, I'll buy medieval, I'll buy European, Asian, Latin America. I'll even buy paper money, and that's one of the reasons I'm successful when I go over there is because I'm very diverse. So if I can't make money here, I can make money here, whatever. And I always find things, and it's an interesting place because things that are collectible and of value here in America aren't necessarily what people want in Europe.
Right.
It's very different. And like when I go to France, one of my friends that I see there regularly, a colleague and dealer buddy of mine, he goes, Kent, it's very weird what you buy. And I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, you buy coins that are incredibly high quality, but they're very common. A French collector, they already have that coin. Mm-hmm. He goes, I come to America and I want to buy things that are rare mints and rare dates. And he's less concerned about quality.
Right.
It's totally the opposite of what the American market is. So we have this kind of symbiotic relationship going where like, okay, if I find something that's rare mint that's off quality, I'll send it to France. And if you find something that's just a nice type coin, because in America you don't get people that nobody collects French by every date and every mint. There's dozens of different mints. It would be endless.
Right.
So what people want is nice types, and that's not necessarily as easy to sell in France, but it's easy to sell here.
Yeah,
it's very different.
Yeah. It is, and I've been telling my clients that for years. I always hear, well, the U.S., pre-33 U.S. gold, that's a global market. Well, not really. It's really, for the gold, yes, but as far as collectability and quality, no, it's primarily here in the United States.
It's the same thing with the Mexican and Latin countries. What we find is the very high-quality condition rarities come north and get sold here in the United States, and the coins that are rare by date or mint that are in lower grade tend to migrate south. They aren't so concerned about quality.
When I was on that European trip, I was in Osnabrück attending an auction, a big German auction, and I was having lunch with one of the employees of the auction company as well as a friend of mine from Amsterdam. And the employee of the German auction company, he said to me, he goes, I don't understand why Americans pay this much money for these coins. He goes, Germany's the biggest market in Europe. And my Dutch friend immediately chimed in. He goes, yeah, but America is the biggest market in the world.
Right.
And you're just one. It's, Germany's, it might be the biggest in Europe, but
Yeah.
America, it advanced much faster, the market here, than it did in any other place. If I had to make a comparison of what the markets are like over there, like they're not buying certified coins, things that are kind of lightly cleaned or something, or defective, like maybe it has an edge nick. They're less concerned about that than they are here.
Well, I think that was true here in the United States too, early on in the
20, 30 years ago it was like that. It's almost like the markets over there are
a little bit behind,
like a few decades behind the times, where they're less concerned with something like an edge nick, or even occasionally if something's been used in jewelry, which is the kiss of death here.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
We think that's going to change too. We think that those markets are following ours, and that eventually they'll be buying the same sorts of things we are in terms of condition rarity.
I want to thank the boys from World Numismatic for joining me today on today's show. We're going to try to have them back again right before Christmas. Again, if you have any questions about World Numismatics or currency, please feel free to call World Numismatics.
480-921-2562 or info@worldnumismatics.com.